Last summer, I took a week off from my job. I thought it would be nice to go to my family's cabin in Vermont. I was 34, and it had been years since we all gathered there. The cabin was old and rustic, sitting quietly by a still lake surrounded by trees. I hoped for some peace and to connect with childhood memories. But that's not what I found. The first night, I heard scratching in the walls. I convinced myself it was just the cabin settling. I was tired from the long drive. But something felt off. I brushed it off and went to bed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The next day was strange. Shadows flickered outside the trees, almost like they were alive. I thought I was imagining it. I tried to relax, but that evening, my cousin Jake suddenly disappeared for hours. When he came back, his shoes were caked in mud. I asked him where he went, but he shrugged and said it didn't matter. Nobody else seemed to care, but a knot formed in my stomach. I felt uneasy. Later, around the campfire, an old family photograph was missing. It was the one that always hung in the cabin. I felt panic rise. I thought maybe someone moved it. I looked for it everywhere, but nobody else seemed worried. My family laughed at my concern. I felt chilly as I searched. Days passed, and my anxiety grew. The scratching noise in the walls returned but was louder this time. My heart raced. I wanted to tell my family how I felt, but they brushed me off. I started to believe they knew something I didn't. That thought gnawed at me. By our last night, the feeling was unbearable. Shadows crept hauntingly closer, and I was sure they were watching me. I thought about going outside, but my body felt heavy. I was scared. Everyone else seemed calm, like nothing was wrong. It made me more anxious. Then, it got silent. A heavy silence hung in the cabin. I wanted to ask questions but feared what I might hear. I glanced outside at the lake one last time. I thought I saw something moving under the surface, a ripple that felt wrong. Then I heard it, a whisper from the woods. The words were too quiet to understand. Maybe it was trying to tell me something. In that moment, dread washed over me. I felt trapped in a bad dream. I turned to my family for comfort, but their faces seemed blank. What was happening? I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I felt alone in a crowd of people. I never understood what happened that summer. The scratching, the shadows, the whispers, they haunted me even after I left. I still wonder what Jake did in the woods. And that photograph? I never found it. I can't shake the feeling that something was very wrong at that cabin. The next morning, I woke up feeling uneasy. The cabin was uncharacteristically quiet. I kept waiting for the usual sounds, the rustle of leaves, the call of distant birds, but they didn't come. It felt like the woods were holding their breath. As I got up, I noticed my family was already awake. They were gathered around the kitchen table, talking, but their voices were muted, almost as if they were far away. I made my way to the coffee pot, trying to shake off the sense of dread. As I poured myself a cup, I spotted something on the floor near the fireplace. It was a small piece of fabric. It was dark and tattered, like something that had been caught and torn. I picked it up, my stomach turning. I couldn't recall seeing it before. I wondered if it belonged to something important, something that had been lost. Jake walked in just then, and I held up the fabric. "Do you know what this is?" I asked him, but he just glanced at it and shrugged. "Looks old," he said dismissively and turned back to the table. I wanted to probe him further, but his tone made me hesitate. Instead, I tucked the fabric in my pocket. Later that day, I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. I headed toward the lake, hoping the water would calm the strange feelings swirling inside me. As I approached the shore, I noticed something odd. There were footprints leading to the water. They didn't belong to anyone in my family. They were smaller, almost childlike, leading toward the lake and then vanishing at the edge. Suddenly, my heart began to race again. I knelt down and examined the prints. They were faint but distinct. Whoever made them had come from the woods behind the cabin. I stood up, feeling a shiver run up my spine. What is going on? I muttered under my breath. Just then, I heard a voice call my name. It was soft, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. I turned, scanning the trees for movement, but found nothing. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. Maybe I was imagining things again. Just as I was about to walk back, I heard it again, a faint echo of my name. This time, it sent chills down my spine. I took a few cautious steps toward the trees, curiosity battling my fear. That's when I saw it. A flash of color caught my eye among the roots of a large tree. I knelt down and brushed aside leaves and dirt, revealing a small, old-fashioned toy, a wooden boat, painted a vibrant blue. It was covered in grime but oddly untouched by the elements, as if it had been placed there intentionally. I felt a knot in my stomach tighten. I couldn't shake the feeling that this boat had something to do with the footprints or the whispers. I picked it up and turned it over, searching for answers. Instead, I found something unexpected, an engraving on the bottom of the boat. Just a name, Oliver. I froze. The name sent a jolt of recognition through me, but I wasn't sure why. I stared at the item, my mind racing. Who was Oliver? I whispered to myself. The toy felt heavy in my hand, more than just wood. It felt like a connection to whatever had been lurking around that cabin. When I turned to head back, the shadows seemed to stretch longer, creeping closer. I quickened my pace, a cold sweat forming on my brow. I couldn't ignore the sense that something was watching me again. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. The whispers began to haunt me once more, calling me to uncover the truth. The moment I stepped back inside, everything changed. The atmosphere felt thicker, charged with a tension I hadn't sensed earlier. All at once, my family turned to me, their faces now serious, eyes wide. "Where have you been?" my sister asked, the urgency in her voice making my heart race. "We need to talk." I took a deep breath, clutching the toy tightly. I didn't know what was about to happen, but I could feel it in my bones. This was just the beginning. The room felt heavy as I faced my family. The seriousness etched on their faces only heightened my anxiety. "What is going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My sister glanced nervously at my parents before looking back at me. It's happening again," she said, her voice trembling slightly. My heart dropped. "We thought it was over after last summer. But it seems like the wood." She trailed off, avoiding my eyes. "What are you talking about?" I pressed, my grip tightening around the wooden boat. The toy felt sticky in my palm, almost like it was trying to pull me into whatever dark reality lay beyond our cabin. Jake glanced toward the door, uneasy. "We keep hearing things, whispers at night. More than we usually do. And things have gone missing," he added with a frown. "Like our fishing gear and some of Mom's stuff." My stomach sank. It didn't feel like a coincidence. "Is it connected to that boat?" I asked, holding it closer to me. I needed to know if they felt the same fear I did. "Probably," my sister replied. "When we were out looking for you, we found the same footprints by the shed." I felt a wave of cold wash over me. We had to confront this together. "What do we do?" I asked, anxiety coiling inside me. "We should go back to the lake," Jake suggested hesitantly. "Maybe there is something there that can help us figure this out." My family murmured in agreement, though their eyes betrayed the dread that settled among us. We gathered a few flashlights and stepped outside, the air thick with uncertainty. As we walked toward the lake, shadows danced at the edge of our vision, pulling at our attention. I could feel the weight of whatever was out there pressing closer, something alive hidden in the darkness. When we reached the shore, everything felt eerily still. The lake reflected the moonlight like a glassy dark mirror. The air carried the faintest hint of whispers, so quiet I almost thought I imagined them until they swirled around us, louder now, like an echoing chant. Oliver, they seemed to call. My breath caught. The name felt like a spell, binding me to the place. Maybe he needs help, I murmured, though uncertainty gnawed at me. Suddenly, a flickering light appeared on the water, illuminating the faint outlines of the footprints we'd seen earlier. This time, they were more profound, leading right into the lake. My heart raced as I felt the pull of the whispers growing stronger. Without thinking, I stepped closer to the edge, drawn to the light. But before I could reach it, Jake grabbed my arm. Wait. We don't know what that is. His voice sliced through the tension. I turned to look at him, uncertainty swirling in my chest. What if Oliver is out there? What if he needs us? But as I said it, I felt a chill grip me. The whispers crescendoed, sounding almost desperate. The light in the lake flickered again and dimmed before completely vanishing. Panic surged. What was that? My sister exclaimed, and I could see fear reflecting in her eyes. Then everything went dark. The moon disappeared behind thick clouds, and the whispers grew louder, frantic. I felt my heartbeat drown out everything else. We were no longer alone on that shore. Someone or something was watching us, waiting for us to make a choice. The darkness closed in around us like a thick blanket. I could feel the cold air crawling on my skin as the whispers grew louder, my mind racing to make sense of it all. It wasn't just the fear of the unknown, it was a primal instinct to flee. We need to go back, I whispered. The words barely left my lips when a distinct rustling broke through the whispers. Did you hear that? Jake asked, his eyes wide and scanning the tree line. My sister clutched my arm tighter. It sounded close, she said, her voice trembling. Then, in the shadowy space between the trees, I saw it a figure. Dark and shrouded, it stood impossibly still, watching us. The whispers surged at the sight of it, morphing into a cacophony that mingled with my rising panic. Get back! I yelled, stepping away from the lake's edge. Oliver! Jake shouted, hope creeping into his voice. Is that you? But the figure didn't answer. It remained silent, unblinking. I could feel its presence growing heavier, like a storm about to break. Not Oliver, I said shakily. I think it's trying to lure us. My heart raced as dread settled in my stomach. The air felt electric, and I could sense something building, like an invisible tension just waiting to snap. Maybe we should call for him, my sister said hesitantly. Are you crazy? What if it's not him? We can't just stand here. I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. The fear was becoming overwhelming, an urge to run mixing with the instinct to stand my ground. Just then, the figure moved. It glided closer to the water's edge, and ghostly light flickered briefly behind it. For a split second, I thought I saw the boy we had searched for all summer, the one who vanished without a trace. But as quickly as it appeared, the light faded, leaving just the figure standing there, still and unyielding. Run! I shouted, pulling my sister toward the path back to the cabin. Jake hesitated for a moment but quickly followed. Breathing hard, we stumbled back through the trees, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The whispers chased us, echoing through the branches. Oliver, they seemed to moan, coaxing us to return. We burst out of the woods and into the yard, panting. I turned back, but the figure was gone. The whispers faded into silence, as if the woods momentarily surrendered. What was that? My sister gasped, hands on her knees as she caught her breath. I don't know, I admitted. My mind raced with questions. What had we just seen? But we can't ignore it. We need to find out what is going on. The shadows felt like they were closing in around us again. I looked down and noticed something glinting on the ground, something small and metallic. My heart raced. It was a keychain, one that I recognized from last summer. It belonged to Oliver. Guys, look. I held it up. This was his. As soon as I said his name, the whispers started again, this time in a rhythmic chant, urging me to listen. The urgency felt almost suffocating. I could feel every beat of my heart, a drum echoing the need to understand. I turned to my family, dread pulling at my throat. We have to go back. We have to figure this out. But as I spoke, I noticed the trees shifting again, their shapes morphing in the corners of my vision. They seemed to be alive, bending inwards, whispering secrets I couldn't comprehend. Whatever was out there, it wasn't finished with us yet. We rushed inside the cabin, slamming the door shut behind us. The wood creaked under my weight as I leaned against it, my breath coming in short gasps. My sister dropped to the floor, arms wrapped around her knees. Jake stood by the window, peering out into the dark, his brow furrowed with worry. What do we do? My sister asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to figure out what that was, I replied, still clutching the keychain tightly. It felt like the only thing anchoring me to reality. Oliver is in trouble. We can't just leave it like this. Jake turned from the window. You're serious? There is something out there. What if it's not safe? We can't just do nothing. I almost shouted. This keychain means he was here. That figure, it was like it wanted us to know. I paced the small living room, feeling the weight of Jake's and my sister's nervous eyes on me. After a long beat, Jake sighed. Okay, then what do we do? Go back into the woods? No. I shook my head, an idea forming. We can figure out what happened first. There has to be something in the cabin that can help us. We rummaged through the shelves and cabinets, my fingers brushing against dust-covered books and forgotten family trinkets. Then, I spotted a leather-bound journal tucked deep in a drawer. Oliver's name was embossed on the cover. My heart raced at the sight of it. Guys, look. I called out, pulling it out and dusting off the cover. What is that? My sister asked, coming closer. It's Oliver's journal, I said, flipping through the crinkled pages. My palms felt clammy as I scanned his handwriting, never neat, always urgent. Read it, Jake urged. Inside, scribbled accounts of his last summer spent in the woods jumped out. He wrote about strange noises at night and shadows darting just beyond the tree line. There were even sketches of figures he had seen, similar to the one we encountered. My pulse quickened as I read his final entry. I think I'm being followed. Wait, my sister leaned in to catch a glimpse. What does this mean? It means he sensed something, I said, reading deeper. Something that might have led him away from us. As I flipped the pages, my hand froze at a sketched map of the woods surrounding our cabin. There were markings XS denoting places he claimed he had seen the figure, and notes like followed me and returned to the lake. That S where the figure was. Jake exclaimed, pointing at one of the XS. Yeah, but look at the last one. I tapped the page. It's close to the tree line and it's not far from the cabin. Suddenly, the cabin filled with a low humming sound like a distant chant. It vibrated through the walls, sending a chill creeping down my spine. My heart raced again, fear tightening my chest. What is that? My sister asked, wide-eyed. I exchanged glances with Jake. I don't know, but we need to move. Now. As we scrambled to the door, I caught a glimpse of a shadow passing by the window. The whispers grew louder, almost roaring. I realized with dawning horror that the figure was returning, and it wasn't he alone. Quick! Out the back! I yelled, shoving the journal into my sister's hands as I backed away from the door. We have to get to the woods before they find us. Before my heart could catch up, we bolted through the back door, ready to face whatever awaited us in the darkness. We sprinted into the dense tree line, branches snagging at our clothes as we ducked and weaved through the shadows. The chorus of whispers followed us, wrapping around us like a tight blanket. The cold air hung heavy, and every sound seemed amplified: the crack of a twig underfoot, the rustle of leaves, our quickened breaths. Where should we go? My sister gasped, struggling to keep up. Oliver's map, I panted, rummaging through my thoughts. We need to check the places he marked. Maybe we can find where he went. Jake nodded, glancing back over his shoulder. I think we lost them for now, but we need to keep moving. Focusing on the map in my mind, I pushed through the undergrowth. Every few steps, I would pause, trying to catch my breath and listen for any sign of what might be pursuing us. I was terrified of glancing back. Quick! I urged as a familiar clearing came into view, the one marked on the journal as the lake. I picked up my pace, desperate to reach its bank. I needed to feel the water, to ground myself in something real. As I burst into the clearing, the shimmering surface of the lake caught the moonlight, but there was no time for relief. My heart dropped as I noticed something floating near the edge, a piece of torn fabric. Oliver's? My sister asked, inching closer. I swallowed hard, recognizing it as part of his jacket. It must be. He was here. Jake bent down to investigate. His flashlight beam caught something glinting near the water. Guys, over here. He called, excitement and dread mingling in his voice. I stepped forward, my heart racing. In the mud, half submerged, I saw it, Oliver's silver keychain, the one he always carried. I reached down, digging it out from the muck. My fingers trembled as I wiped it clean. This doesn't make any sense, I muttered, scanning the area. Why would he come here? Before anyone could respond, the humming began again, louder and more insistent. Panic surged through me. It was coming from behind us. The leaves rustled, and shadows flickered at the edge of the woods. They were coming for us, I could feel it. Back! We need to go back! I yelled. But just as we turned, I noticed a faint glow near the edge of the lake. Wait, look! I pointed, breathless. What is that? From the water's edge, a figure slowly emerged, shimmering and indistinct. I felt a surge of icy dread wash over me. It looked similar to the shadow we had seen in the woods, but there was something different. It was almost glowing. Then everything clicked. This isn't just a figure, I whispered, realization dawning. It's connected to Oliver. Before I could voice that fear, the shimmering figure morphed, transforming, twisting into a shape that was vaguely familiar but somehow wrong. The humming turned into a chaotic howl, echoing through the trees. Run! Jake shouted, and we didn't need to be told twice. With the figure looming and that terrifying sound spiraling around us, we dashed back into the forest, adrenaline racing in my veins. The realization that we had not only invaded Oliver's mystery but also uncovered something deeper gnawed at me. As we stumbled into the night, barely avoiding branches and brambles, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was out there had only just begun to reveal itself. We tore through the trees, breaths coming in sharp gasps. I could hear the leaves rustling behind us, their whispers mingling with the frantic pounding of my heart. Something in that lake had been more than just a mere shadow. It was a warning, but a warning of what? Did you see its face? My sister said, her voice trembling. What was that supposed to be? I don't know, I admitted. But whatever it was, it's connected to Oliver. We need to figure this out. On the map, Jake interjected, pulling it out as we stumbled into another clearing. There's another mark here. He pointed to a place deep in the woods, far from the lake but still on Oliver's path. I didn't like the look of it, but we didn't have many choices. Let us go, I urged, looking over my shoulder again. The unease gnawed at my gut, and I was afraid of what I might see. We moved quickly, the path winding through the trees, the moonlight casting eerie shadows all around us. Each snap of branches made my stomach churn. This was more than just the search for Oliver, it felt like we were being hunted. Finally, we reached a small hill overlooking a valley. I gasped. Below us was a dilapidated cabin, its windows dark and overgrown with vines. There, I pointed, trying to suppress the feeling that the cabin was somehow watching us back. It felt alive, as if it held secrets we shouldn't uncover. "Do you think he's in there?" my sister whispered, eyes wide with fear. "We have to find out," Jake said, stepping forward. The intonation of his voice made me wonder if he felt the same overwhelming dread that gripped me, but I knew we had come too far to turn back now. Working our way down the hill, I spotted something glinting in the moonlight, a small object half buried in the dirt by the cabin's door. I bent down to pick it up. It was a small journal, its leather cover cracked but familiar. "It's Oliver's," I breathed, flipping it open. The crumpled pages were filled with hurried, frantic writing. Most of it didn't make sense, scribbled notes about symbols and places around the lake. But then one phrase jumped out at me: "They know I'm here." The whispers grow louder. "Guys, look at this," I called urgently. As we crowded around, the howling sound returned, piercing the night. The ground seemed to tremble beneath our feet. I could see shadows moving at the edge of the trees, dark shapes that slithered among the trunks as if testing the boundaries of light. "Get inside!" Jake shouted, pushing us toward the entrance of the cabin. Reluctantly, we stepped over the threshold. The air inside was stale, and the floor creaked ominously. A tattered sofa lay against one wall, and a stone fireplace filled with ashes stood silent. But what drew my attention was the wall covered in strange drawings. They resembled the symbols Oliver had written about. "We need to figure this out. We might find something that could help us," I said, my voice echoing in the darkness as I moved to inspect the drawings. But then a loud crash sounded outside. My heart raced as I turned toward the door. Whatever had been following us was getting closer, and we were trapped. "Something's out there," my sister whimpered, her face pale with fear. Before I could answer, the door slammed shut. A shadow flickered past the window, and I felt the air grow colder. Then I heard a whisper so clear it chilled my blood: "You shouldn't have come here." Panic surged through me as I understood we were not just following Oliver's path anymore. We were stumbling into something far worse. The darkness in the cabin felt like a living thing, closing in around us. I shivered, gripping the journal tighter. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jake glanced around, eyes darting from drawing to drawing on the wall. "We need to find a way out. Those things out there, whatever they are, they're looking for us." The floor creaked again, but this time it sounded different, like something heavy was moving above us. My heart thundered in my chest. I had to focus. "We need to find a way to communicate with Oliver," I said, hoping the idea would stop the fear from choking me. "What if he's not here? What if my sister's voice broke? What if he's already gone? It doesn't matter. We need answers." As I felt my way along the wall, I noticed something odd: a loose floorboard, slightly raised. It didn't seem right. I pulled at it, and the board lifted easily, revealing a small, dark cavity underneath. The hollow space held a single item, a broken compass, the needle spinning wildly. "Look!" I held it up for them to see. "He must have hidden it here." "Great, what does that even mean?" Jake snapped, trying to peer out the window again. I could see his frustration mounting, but I was already flipping through the journal once more. As I read, a phrase caught my eye: "The key is in the north." I frowned, trying to make sense of it. My mind raced. What if the compass points us to something important? We need to follow it. Suddenly, a soft thud echoed from above, like footsteps from the loft. We froze, listening. The silence wrapped around us, thick and suffocating. Then came the whispers again, clearer this time: "Join us." "Did you hear that?" My sister's voice trembled. "They want us to join them." "Don't let it get in your head," Jake warned, glancing nervously at the ceiling. We can get through this. Rallying my courage, I said, let us follow the compass's needle. It has to mean something. We gathered our nerve and crept toward the back corner of the cabin, where the compass pointed more directly. Another crash echoed behind us, rattling the windows. My heart raced, and the feeling of being hunted returned with a vengeance. I quickly pushed aside an old blanket that hung over a frame, revealing a small door leading to the loft. What if he is up there? My sister murmured, clutching my arm. What if it's him? What if it's not? Only one way to find out, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I shoved the door open, and it creaked loudly. A dark staircase spiraled up into a dim room filled with shadows. As we climbed the stairs, the whispers intensified, swirling around us like an unseen wind. You shouldn't have come here, they taunted, but I pressed on. Then everything went still. At the top, I found something unexpected, a small altar in the center of the room, adorned with trinkets and strange symbols. And there, in the middle, a photograph of Oliver. But he looked different, his eyes dark and wild. When I saw it, I blinked, realizing the truth. Oliver's face wasn't the only one in the photo. The shadows around him grinned with twisted smiles. I gasped as I felt cold fingers brushing my neck, and I turned to find a shadowy figure standing behind us. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was frozen in place. The figure loomed like a fog rolling in, its shape barely solid. I barely had time to process fear before it spoke, a raspy whisper that sliced through the thickening air. You shouldn't be here. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled backward, nearly losing my footing on the stairs. Who are you? I managed to choke out, my voice cracking. I could see Jake's hand tighten around my sister's arm, his eyes wide with terror. Join us, it repeated, its voice a twisted echo, seductive yet repulsive. It raised a hand, pointing at the altar where Oliver's photo lay. He made his choice. You must too. No. I shouted, finding a thread of defiance. I grabbed the compass and turned it towards the figure, hoping the broken device would somehow help us. We want Oliver back. The figure recoiled, its shadow shifting, becoming more indistinct. It hissed, he is no longer yours. The whispers swirled louder, wrapping around my mind, threatening to drown my thoughts. I could barely hear anything but their call. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something else on the altar, a small wood carving, maybe the size of my palm, of a creature I didn't recognize. There was a strange familiarity in it, something I couldn't place. Its eyes seemed to watch me as if alive. Don't listen to it. Jake shouted suddenly, breaking through the growing chaos in my head. I turned to see him moving toward the altar. We can't let it take us too. As I watched him approach, a surge of warning shot through me. Jake, wait. But he was already reaching for the carving. In that moment, the figure screamed, a horrible sound that rattled the walls. You mustn't touch that. Jake paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. It feels important. Forget it. We need to get out. I shouted, but the words barely escaped my lips. The temperature in the loft dropped, and waves of ominous energy pressed against us. Then everything changed. The floor beneath us trembled, and the room began to twist. I was plunged into darkness, losing sight of Jake and my sister. I felt cold hands reaching for me, pulling me into nothingness. Help! I screamed, desperation clawing at my throat. But just as quickly, the darkness lifted. I found myself back on the stairs, breathless and shaken. The altar was empty, the photograph gone. The shadowy figure had vanished. Where are you? I called out, my voice echoing off the walls. I could feel panic rising again. Jake! Emily! Silence answered, thick and heavy. My heart pounded in a different rhythm now, fear mixed with determination. I had to find them. I had to know what was happening. Please, I whispered, clutching the compass tight, its needle still spinning as if searching for something. I turned it toward the door leading down, where the whispers had quieted. "I'll find you. I promise." But as I stepped down the stairs, a chilling realization hit me: the compass wasn't simply broken. It was alive, guiding me deeper into the unknown. And the further I went, the more unsure I was if I was searching for my family or if I was meant to join them. The weight of the cabin pressed heavily on me as I stumbled down the stairs, the faint glow of the moonlight barely penetrating the darkness. Heart racing, I clutched the compass to my chest as if it could offer some guidance against whatever had claimed Oliver. My breaths came in shallow gasps, fear clawing at my insides. "Jake? Emily?" There was no answer, just the echo of my own voice swallowed by the stillness. As I stepped into the main room, shadows flickered and danced at the periphery of my vision. Every slight creak of the house felt like a warning. I glanced at the fireplace, where embers lay cold and lifeless, and noticed remnants of old masks crafted, worn, positioned like sentinels watching over. Their depths seemed to shift, almost alive. I shivered but forced myself to focus. Think, I said to myself, trying to summon a plan. Oliver had written about the woods being alive. Was this cabin part of that? Was it a gateway to the other side? I could feel something tugging at me, urging me deeper into this unsettling mystery. I glanced down at the compass. The needle was still spinning erratically. I squinted at it, and it gradually began to stabilize, pointing toward a door I hadn't noticed before. The wood was rough and ancient, adorned with strange symbols, some resembling those in Oliver's journal. My throat tightened. I gripped the handle, heart hammering in my chest. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open, leading me to a narrow staircase that spiraled down. The air grew colder, thick with a dampness that hinted at long-kept secrets. I descended carefully, each step sending a shiver through me. When I reached the bottom, I found myself in a dimly lit room filled with old photographs lining the walls, faces from another time. With each image I recognized a story, fragments of joy trapped in faded smiles, but the eyes seemed hollow, watching, waiting. Suddenly, I heard voices. Faint and fragmented, they echoed through the air, drawing me closer to a central table shrouded in shadow. My pulse quickened. Was it Jake? Emily? I strained to hear, inching forward, heart racing. "Join us," the voices murmured in harmony, sending chills down my spine. "Oliver is safe, he found the light." What light? I wanted to scream, but the words caught in my throat. I turned back toward the staircase. Each whisper reverberated against wood, a spine-chilling reminder of my solitude. I needed to find Jake and Emily. I spun on my heel, ready to retreat, but the shadows behind me began to shift. I froze when I saw a figure emerge from the corner of the room, but it wasn't Jake or Emily. The shadows coalesced into a tangible form, a boy with dark eyes and an unsettling smile painted across his face. "You're looking for them, aren't you?" he said softly. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice shaky. "Oliver," he answered, his tone both playful and laced with menace. "You've come too far. They're safe, but safety comes with a price." "What do you want?" I demanded, feeling anger surge through my fear. "Where are my sister and Jake? They are part of something greater now, just beyond your reach." His grin widened. "And soon you will be too." I shook my head, sudden clarity flooding my thoughts. This was not the Oliver I had known. The whispers thickened, filling the air with an urgency I could almost touch. "No. I want to join you," I shouted, my defiance igniting a flame within me. "I must find them." In one swift motion, the figure lunged closer, and the room darkened around us. "You cannot fight this, you must." A blinding light erupted from the compass clutched in my hand, illuminating the room like a flare. The shadows recoiled, releasing a deafening howl that rattled the walls. I darted toward the wooden staircase, driven by desperation and fear. As I sprinted back up the stairs, I could feel the pulse of something dark behind me, the whispers drowning in the chaos. I shoved open the door, stumbling into the cabin's main room. I needed to find my family, but the atmosphere had shifted thick, cloying, as if the walls had become sentient. "Jake! Emily!" I yelled, hoping against hope. But the shadows around me seemed to whisper their absence, like a twisted lullaby urging me to give in. Suddenly, I spotted a flicker of movement outside the window, a shadow darting deep into the trees. My heart raced. "No!" I cried, bursting through the front door and into the cool night air, following the trail with determined haste. The woods were alive, the trees bending and twisting in strange formations, and the whispers echoed all around me, turning from coaxing to mocking. "You shouldn't have come," they rasped in unison, sounding almost triumphant. I fought against the panic threatening to overwhelm me, focusing instead on my compass. It was still pointing north. With every step, my mind raced. What had happened to Jake and Emily? Were they lost in this twisted realm? My resolve tightened. I would not leave without them. The darkness closed in, shadows shifting almost deliberately, drawing me deeper as I followed the compass's unwavering path. I had to believe that I could bring them back, that we could face whatever had captured Oliver together. But as I charged into the heart of the woods, I suspected that this final confrontation was only a prelude. Ahead lay a clearing, untouched by the shadows, the whispers fading behind me. I could sense that in its depths lay answers, but the question lingered: would we emerge from this together, or would I lose them to whatever had entwined Oliver in its grasp? I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the unknown, knowing that the echoes of the past awaited, whether in shadow or light. I would confront them.